Good afternoon, LinkedIn friends, YouTube friends, HubSpot Nation. Happy 2020, happy 2025.
Not 2024. Happy 2025.
Happy
HubSpot Nation.
Wednesday. We are here for the first episode of Let's Build CPQ with Bill Barlas in 2025. How you doing, man?
I'm excellent. How are you, Chris?
I am doing great. Uh, I think this topic might be, aside from AI, like if we could just like take that out, uh, probably the number one topic in the HubSpot ecosystem for 2025. Everybody's excited for cash flow to see what they like build into the infrastructure. Um, Everybody's always needed help with quoting in general. Um, Happily is doing some awesome stuff. Just sign up for a webinar from them next week. Uh, Everybody on this journey to optimize quote to cash. Um, and the subject came up earlier this week related to defining the difference between human data and non-human data. Um, and it's probably my own doing because that's often how I represent HubSpot to people because it's always a battle whenever there's external systems or like systems of record that are more important than HubSpot, usually, like ERPs or accounting systems or just manufacturing systems. It's always like you got to prove the value of HubSpot first,
Yep.
or else it's just, oh, just send us the minimum amount of data and we'll take it from here. We got it. Right. And then we all know how that customer experience goes and those internal experiences when we're logging into other systems and can't find customer data when the customer asks for it.
Yeah.
Or we mirror the systems and destroy HubSpot's data model in the process. Uh, so now you can't find the data on the HubSpot side of things,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Obviously, I'm being a little extreme here, but I thought it was awesome specifically to talk about in regards to CPQ because, in my experience, CPQ is often uh, the trigger for CPQ for me has rarely been a customer experience reason. It's usually like we've got to connect to our inventory better, or we've got to handle our margins, or like something
Yeah.
like that, some internal need, right?
Well, I
But
think
at the end of the day, CPQ is always bringing together customer data and like the back end data, let's say. So just like if somebody were to come to you and say like human data versus non-human data, like tell me what your story is there.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think first we should, for our audience, try and give a little bit of a definition of human data versus non-human data. So what that really means for people that are working in business today. I think, Chris, when you refer to human data, what you mean is things like, is this product available? How much does it cost? When is it going to get to me? Right? Non-human data, an example is what are the subcomponents of the product that we're going to use to build it in the background, or what supplier are we going to use to procure this thing? So it's data for humans that are outside our company that that need to know something in order to have a commercial experience with us, right? So to buy something. So with that definition, when we're thinking about it, um, we have price, we have inventory levels, availability, right? What else are we thinking about? Maybe some specification information about the product, things like that. Um, and really, it's fairly uniform from company to company what you see, and not really, probably should not be that complicated. That's really important. Um, Making it very simple.
Well, why do you think it is? Why do you think it's been It's so complicated.
Um, I think that the internal workings of a company that are delivering even a very simple product oftentimes are not simple, and so um, that fight for simplicity. I saw Dharmesh talking about it on LinkedIn the other day. Um, I don't think that I think delivering a simple experience has a lot of complexity to it, and so it's really almost more of a organizational failure that we can't deliver something simple, right? We're not working hard enough with our own complexity to deliver that simplicity. It's been possible for a long time. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
uh,
So, like, what kind of, I guess it's hard. And this is where it's like it can be a blind leading the blind situation in my experience. Because if you're the vendor, let's say the ERP or CPQ, and the customer says, I want to manage my margin,
mhm.
right? There's nothing about the customer experience in there. And so if that truly is the goal, it often doesn't matter where the data is as long as it's being calculated against, right?
Yes.
Um, so is there a balance to strike where you try to help them with that, or is it generally like try to s- serve the specific need they come forward with, and then if customer experience comes up later, now we address it then?
Yeah, well, I think that you have to think about who the user of the CPQ software is versus what the result, who gets the output result from it, right? So calculating and controlling margins is not that data is not intrinsically that is intrinsically human data for the person using it, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing to be doing margin controls inside your CPQ. It's just what you need to do is make sure that you think about the value that you're delivering to your end customer and be careful about that. So what you wouldn't want to do is make the CPQ cumbersome to the point where you can't get a quote out the door quickly and simply, right? So it's I think thinking about who the particular human is that needs that data and at what time is pretty important there. So um, and I think also not, I think where we offer the most guidance is not losing sight of what the experience is going to be for the end person receiving a quote, right? You know, we want to make it a little bit more complex for our sales team, but there's some wins for the overall organization. As long as the customer doesn't suffer from that, I think that's usually okay. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's on the mark. um Before we get to, so of course I had to include like Claude in this conversation. And before we get to that kind of playbook that it helped
Mm-hmm.
to draft, a part of the playbook is how different teams often want different things.
Yes.
Um, what is your preferred way to go about obtaining alignment in those situations?
Yeah, absolutely. So um, I have a more cynical way of kind of handling some of these things. We're not cynical, but when you're talking to a leadership team, for example, oftentimes you can say things along the lines of, "Okay, what do you want to achieve strategically? Tell us that, and we will go and achieve it for you." And keeping them out of the operational minutia of getting something done can save your life. And so, you know, bringing what data are we going to expose to the customer up to that level. Sometimes it's important, but other times I think it's better to ask for a strategy and then go and execute on that strategy. And so it's who is seeing what, um, and who's making these decisions. I think is a huge way of helping, you know, manage what you're asking about. Yes. So Gotta let the people that are still executing make the decision about which data points to expose, I guess, because they'll know what the customer is looking for.
Right. Um, and in this spot where like we yearn for the system of record or single source of truth, yet it's clear and clear that a lot of these systems overlap and they can handle the same types of data, whether they're creating, managing, communicating it. Um, how do you, like when you have multiple teams working out of multiple systems, how do you go about determining where the data should live, like to support this activity?
Well, HubSpot, obviously. Honestly.
I want to get into that because you're relatively newer to the ecosystem, I think inside of like
Yeah.
a couple years, and
Yeah, I
it's
think
pretty clear.
no, we limit it a little bit differently. So if it's customer or contact data, it lives in HubSpot, right? If it's deal data, it lives in HubSpot, right? If it's quote data so for an example of deal data is payment terms. So what are the payment terms going to be on this deal? Or what's another good example? Sometimes you got like price books, right? So what region, what state is this deal occurring in, right? That's all deal data, right? If CPQ takes advantage of that or not, it should start and live within HubSpot, right? Whereas if you're generating a bill of materials for a configuration of a product, CPQ, right? That's where that data should originate. It makes sense there because that's the system. How about this? Each one of these systems has a core grain of truth about why it exists, right? A CRM is customer relationship management. So customer contact, deal, service, all of that stuff, it should be there, right? That's what it's good at. Maybe it can do other things, but that's what it's good at. So use it for what it's good at. Whereas a product configurator or a CPQ solution, right? It should hold your product configurations in it, right? And the parent-child relationship for all of that deal data that comes in that then generates your quote should be in HubSpot and come over. See what I mean? So it's the core grain of truth of a CPQ is a configurator, a document output engine, and a pricing engine, right? So it makes sense to hold that information there, right? So that's sort of how you do it, right? You might have a light CRM capability that comes with your CPQ. That's use the CRM for the CRM and the CPQ for the CPQ. Just like you probably wouldn't want to generate. Well, okay, I was just going to say sales orders. I didn't mean it. I take it back. Just like you wouldn't want to maintain your manufacturing BOM list inside of HubSpot because the ERP is designed to do that. And the ERP might have some light customer relationship management features. No. We want to use the ERP for the ERP's capabilities. And that's why that overlap, it's more sprawl than it is overlap. Like, yes, it can kind of do the same things, but that's not really what we want. What we want is to maintain the grain of truth of the solution that we purchased and use it for what we purchased it for. That make sense?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And that, like what you said about, I'm finding more and more that oftentimes like people think it's about like being able to build the thing in HubSpot and like showing it can do it. But more and more I'm coming across like people attach specific functionality to marketing and sales,
Yes.
and then they don't attach it, and they attach HubSpot to that. right?
Yep.
Then if it's anything outside of that, I've got to cross the bridge of, yeah, because we're using objects and
Yep.
managing data, the deals, contacts, and company records, we can make post-sales records just like those. It doesn't mean we're asking HubSpot to do all the work to
Yeah.
generate all the data, but we can have it there now.
Right. Yeah.
So
All I was trying to say is that I think when we're making a delineation about where data should be housed, like you would never make a contact record inside your CPQ if it's integrated with the CRM system, right? Shouldn't happen. And different organizations do work differently to some extent, right? You might have some custom objects that are dealing with various different things. That's fine. Um, all I'm saying is that there is sort of a core truth to what the thing is supposed to be used for, and using it for that is really how to make that delineation the most successfully, I think.
yeah, that's why you're the perfect person to shoot holes in this thing I'm about to show you. Because I mean, like you said at the beginning, it should be simple,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I
Right.
think that the way that B2B software has been delivered overall since like 1990s has created a lot of moments of complexity that we end up solving for the complexity instead of just understanding like, okay, who needs to know this when?
Yep.
Where does it need to be for them to know that? Right.
Right.
Which is definitely the premise here. Uh, and so I've got a couple different cloud projects that I work with um, to help try to put these concepts in a way that can acknowledge the way that people usually see HubSpot and the greater systems at play, like ERPs and these other systems, but also bring it back towards HubSpot a little bit in terms of don't like at the end of the day, you're paying some decent money for
Mm-hmm.
HubSpot, and you could ask it to do a lot more than it
Yep.
is. And when you do that, it creates these great customer experiences, not only for external, but internal users as well. So I put together this integration playbook for enabling this flow of data. Um, and I broke it down to customer teams, operations teams, and leadership teams because they generally have very different goals,
Mm-hmm.
very different understandings of what these systems can do. I think what you're getting at is I do think there's a path towards it simply being human connected data and not human connected data. And if we can start having a conversation like that, it starts to clear this up a lot,
I agree.
right?
The other thing I wanted to quickly clear up, and I don't know if I did a good job explaining this or not. Really, what I was talking about is origin of data, not existence of it in another system. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah.
It's not about where you can see it. It's about where it starts. That was kind of what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And that's like, I think that's the next level of this. Because once you decide which pieces of data, I mean, ultimately, it's if you're not sure how to approach this, it's as simple as asking the question, does your customer ever want to see that?
yeah,
Right. And then three buckets of it's got to originate from somewhere. Something has to create the data. What's
yeah,
doing that? How are we managing and maintaining it? Which
yeah,
system is doing that? And then which system is communicating it?
yes,
Right. And that's where, of course, I'm going to say HubSpot all day as far as the communication piece, which means all we have to do to decide which data we need to communicate. And that doesn't matter which systems do the management and the maintenance or the creation as long as we bring it over into HubSpot.
agreed.
Um, so when we're helping teams understand, this is what we say for customer teams. And I'm always gonna speak like in utopian terms, trying to like as if we don't have silos anymore. So let's pretend we have everybody on the same customer facing team, replacing the traditional silos of marketing and sales and service. Wouldn't that be something? Creating value depends on having complete context for every customer interaction. Um, what this means for system integration: when a customer reaches out, you need immediate access to their complete story, not just CRM data, but
Okay.
also relevant operational information that affects their experience. This means order status, shipping dates, inventory levels, and other traditionally back office data must be visible within your HubSpot workspace. And I think this example paints it perfectly. If we don't have the integration, we can see basic stuff in
Mhm.
HubSpot, but we got to call up operations to see the current status there. We got to wait for shipping to confirm delivery dates. We got to check inventory separately or pull up that spreadsheet that maybe you don't have easy access to. And you're basically piecing together this full picture. Oftentimes, like, hats off to teams that have to do this, because oftentimes they're doing it real time on the phone.
Oh yeah.
And when we talk about self-service portals and all that stuff, like the amount of, like, I think we take it for granted because they've been doing it forever, right? So they can do it really quickly. It is such a mental load to have to go to all these places and remember where everything is. And of course, it's near impossible to train somebody quickly,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
this is a
it's
part of their job, right?
this is something that we're actually doing a project right now where we're working on solving this very problem. It's we're a little bit outside of the realm of CPQ now, but the idea is that we'll be transitioning so that all of the order, so you make a deal inside HubSpot, you can, with a portal, you can then turn it into, you can check your inventory level pre-purchase, make the purchase. Once it's an order, you can see the order status information that's coming from the ERP system, look up all of these things. So you can self-service a quote, you can self-service an order, all of that information right there. And really what this is there's like a layer, like Chris is talking about, of human information that needs to come from the operational side and be sent over to HubSpot so that we have it in a place where it's achievable from a portal. Because once we get it into HubSpot, it's easy to start showing it, via these different portals, or even directly through objects when you log in. So it's the idea is to flow the information from where it originates or where it needs to be, and show it inside of HubSpot so that you can actually use it for things.
Yeah.
So that's what's key with that integration. And they're not even using a CPQ; they just don't need that. Like, it's just line item quoting all day. Um, but
Yep.
the the strength of this is, we were sitting at Inbound talking about this, and you kind of explained it to me. There's like a layer of human information that needs to be sitting there in order to build all of these, you know, things that can help influence and improve customer experience from it. So,
Right. And it's not different from the layer of non-human information that all these other systems need
mhm.
to manage inventory, to manage margin,
Yeah,
to manage supply chain. Like, that's why the order, because the order, like, if we're like starting from scratch, like a customer order, does that naturally go in the customer management system or the enterprise resource system?
mm,
Right? And so we're in a world now where that naturally goes into the enterprise resource system, because that's where I need it to be able to understand all of the production and operational details to get that right.
yeah. How are we
Right.
going to deliver it?
Right.
That's the question I think a lot of people are going to ask, because it's built around the idea of being able to deliver this thing to the customer, which has a extremely different. I mean, that's hard, right? And so
Right.
I think having, whether you choose to initiate an order and stub out an order object inside your HubSpot environment and let operations do it and pass data back, or if you manage some of the human data for the order inside of HubSpot, and they get the operational data that they need to actually build the thing, and they just tell you that information. I'm I think that's going to kind of vary depending on the uh, level of sophistication of the ERP system and the team that's executing on it. But I think having the customer order, that really what that is that's on the border between human data and back background.
Well, that's what the order
Level.
is the representation of both,
Yes.
right? The fullest representation of both more than any other object. And I think the difference, what we're in now, like when these systems, these ERPs were first developed,
Mm-hmm.
self-service expectations were not there,
No, it didn't exist at
right? We
all.
didn't
Yep. All
need
fax.
all this. We were okay with calling in, right? Now, a part of the delivery is letting the customer know what's going on
Mm-hmm.
constantly,
Yep.
right? And that's why we're proposing this updated shift of like, yes, you're going to have order data in both places, right?
Yep.
But here's why you need it, right? This is a
Yep.
source of truth for operations. This is a source of truth for a customer team,
Well,
right?
that actually goes back to my previous statement, though. There's nothing wrong with that. It's
Right.
where it originates that I think people get a little bit hairy about. But having a parent child with an order coming from your ERP that exists inside your CRM, so you can tell people what's going on, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that. If they could call you on the phone and you'll give them that information, why on earth would you not give it to them in a self-service portal? Why? There's no reason.
Right.
There's just no reason. It's a better customer experience, better everything. I think that's a little harder to get to sometimes than we think, though. It's the only problem. But
Like the data.
the
Or,
data, and if the data is accurate, and like there's like a human, do I really want to tell them that type of thing going on? You know,
yeah. Yeah.
like
Transparency and
like we're in B2B. You know, we've got long-term customers who are trying to maintain relationships with, like, or like, another one is like, okay, it's going to sit there and order fulfillment for 3 weeks. Like, it's got to be right and nice in order for a human to want to use it. Like they're just going to call customer service anyway and say, no, really, I want to know where it is actually. Like,
right. Yeah.
there's some of that stuff that needs to be, like, the reality of this has some bullshit associated with it that we have to be.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this line right here, like, and it's one of my favorite examples on how to like when leaders do need to know how this granular level of like, okay, you say you want a self-service portal. We need real-time shipping, at least shipping, right? Like
Yeah,
tracking IDs and
yeah,
and shipping status
yeah,
is like one of the number one places where you could cut out customer communications and they will all gleefully accept that information in a self-service fashion,
yeah,
right? But what is the chance that you've never had to serve it up in a
yeah,
self-service way before and that data doesn't get filled out because it doesn't have to, like until the end of the month report,
yeah,
right? Because it's been
absolutely.
sitting over in UPS World Ship or wherever.
Hmm.
And now we bring it in just so we can do the on-time percentages and that kind of stuff. And that's where it's like, oh, now this whole team has to change their process,
Yeah,
right? But I think the thing that you're touching on there is like why wouldn't you do that? Uh, there's this give and take, and the reason I think they don't ask for it is because what I just described, these brilliant people who can do all this stuff within 5 minutes, like it's valuable that they can do that, right? And when you tell them they don't have to do that anymore, that they don't need to, it's like, oh no, like what am I gonna be doing then? Like, but in reality, like this last line here, right? Because they also say, oh, I wish I had time for this, or I wish I had time for this, and I wish I could just learn about my customers. And it's like now you can because you just pull up an order record. Everything you need is right there. Instead of spending your time searching for stuff you're building rapport with the customer in that moment, and all these other things become possible.
Yeah, well, I don't know. There's sort of a scary thought about all this, and I was sort of framing it in my head as, there's sort of winners and losers. You know, it's we we should all be thinking about ways that we can bring value that are not easy to automate today. So, you know,
Yes. I'm sure we'll have some AI focused episodes at some point. Um, but this is it. I mean, this is really like,
that's what it is.
and ultimately, if this is the difference between this kind of goal versus margin management, right?
Mhm.
Like when you can build out the same system for both goals, but things get done just a little bit differently. And then at the end of the day, you know, um, you met the goal of margin or inventory control or whatever, and you left out some key points where now we're having to dig quotes. We're having to log into other systems or call the teams to confirm that we can quote this thing right now. Did we get it in? Did we not get it in? Um, Also, this layer, like when you can define HubSpot as the place for the human connected data and as going beyond customer relationship management to communication and relationship management.
Mhm.
How many teams have you seen where the supply chain data and communications are just sitting in inboxes because it's not necessarily all the information inside of it. Like you can't mess around with your ERP because it's got to be real. So any kind of like fuzzy ship times or anything like that, we don't put it in until we really know
Yeah.
that it's the real deal. But then we don't even think about bringing that over into the CRM because it's marketing and sales only and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, your salesperson really wants to know what's
Yeah,
going on with the
I think
supply
it's
chain.
also like it's what is the buzzword? Connected commerce, something like that.
That's one of them.
Yeah, that whatever. I'll have to ask. You know,
This is
Chris.
the kind of visibility that
Yeah,
we're
I'll have
talking
to
about.
ask Chris.ai later if I got the right buzzword for that. But the point is that um, it, it's a conversation with your leadership team to explain that what you're doing actually is more than just CRM. It's CRM, I guess, with big letters. You know, giving them self-service. It's self-service, and to have self-service, you have to have the information. You're using HubSpot almost more as like a database of customer information that you can then expose out to your customer. That's really what that is. And I think we probably need to build a picture of what that looks like so that people can understand it a little better. But
Yeah.
that's that's really what this is. It's not as much logging notes and activities as it is almost enabling your CRM to be a self-service CRM.
Yes. Yep.
And
Um,
that's a different thing. Because I think, if you're if you're used to thinking about CRM as um, I call Jane Doe on the phone about my sales engagement, please buy my thing, and then I log that activity in CRM, I could absolutely see why you wouldn't really see why you would need real-time
oh,
shipping data in your CRM. But
oh,
that's
for
not
sure.
what we're proposing. What we're proposing is letting somebody self-service a quote, an order, research about product, all these different things. It's commerce inside of the CRM.
Right. It's
And
the full relationship,
yes,
right?
yeah,
That's what we're excited about this year, like revenue recognition and stuff like that. It's about to get a lot better from a reporting perspective. That means the visibility gets better.
yeah,
So just to make good on my request, this seems pretty straightforward. Yes, the customer facing team example here.
yeah, sure.
So for operations teams, and this is where it's very easy to fall into the, well, HubSpot shouldn't replace that. HubSpot's not a XYZ system. That's not what we're talking about here.
This is what I'm going to die on the cross for. By the way, I'm
Yeah.
going to disagree with you here. I can already tell. That's all right though.
So You maintain, as your operation team, you maintain the operational backbone that enables value delivery. While your primary tools might live in NetSuite or other operational systems, the data you manage often becomes crucial to your customer experience. This cannot be understated. Like when the inventory is wrong, like
Yeah.
that's one of the most common reasons to just wholesale buy $100,000 like software packages
Hmm.
because that's a problem that must be fixed and you lose customers over that.
True.
Right. What this means for system integration. Not all operational data needs to flow to the customer facing systems.
Hmm.
The key is identifying which data points become human connected by impacting customer experience. Essential to share order status and tracking, inventory availability for customer specific items, production schedules affecting delivery dates, quality check results customer care about. Stuff can stay internal. Work center assignments, internal cost calculations, warehouse bin locations, inventory counting schedules.
Okay.
Anything like that's fair, right? Fair
Yeah.
expectations here.
Yes, absolutely. As examples, yeah, why not? I thought you were going to say we shouldn't use the ERP as an ERP, which was what I was going to say no to.
Ah, certainly not. Certainly not. HubSpot is not an ERP. It is not an accounting system.
Yeah.
It's not even a CPQ,
No.
right?
CRM.
Um, yes, it is a customer platform. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. Well, we can look at this quick real world example when production falls behind schedule. The revised completion date becomes human connected data. Customer teams need this visible in HubSpot so they can proactively communicate instead of the salesperson getting the "Where's my order?" email. This turns a potential negative into a relationship building opportunity. Man, the difference between handling this reactively and proactively, like, is the
Huge.
difference between loyal customers.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so pretty straightforward for leadership teams. Um, you need to ensure your organization can deliver exceptional customer experiences while maintaining operational excellence. Got to understand how the data flows. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not letting any leader at any level off the hook. Data is is the oil of the business. And how could you possibly resource your organization properly if you don't understand uh, customer and production data,
Yeah.
right? So, what this means for system integration, evaluate through the lens of value creation. Questions asked: does this data impact how customers experience doing business with us? Do our customer facing teams need this information to provide excellent service? Could making this data more visible improve our customer relationships? Would having this information in HubSpot prevent customer frustration? A little bit of an investment justification framework, which I wish like investment justifications like worked. If you haven't hit on any of these other questions, you're not gonna hit here. Um, because this is the point where it's like I need to see it to believe it, and you got to build so much of anyways.
Yeah.
All right. So when considering integration costs, time saved by customer teams not hunting for information, improved customer satisfaction from faster response times, reduced errors from manual data transfer. Is that always overlooked?
I mean, it's a key selling point to the CPQ solution typically.
Okay.
And I mean, I don't know so much about for CRM or for customer platform if that conversation happens that often, but you know, yeah,
So what kind of data is manually being transferred in those situations where, yep, CPQ solves for that? I think I have an idea, but I want to hear.
yeah. We're really talking about quote configuration data, and it's not really manual entry like fat finger that we're talking about. It's more like you're quoting something that can't be quoted. Like we can't build that, is the type of thing that we're usually talking about when we talk about manual entry errors, right? So you'll try and, you know, sell something with the wrong plate steel thickness because of the length of the thing, right? And so now we've coated it with the wrong plate steel, and it costs dramatically more for us to build the thing we just sold than what we agreed to, because it didn't automatically change when we made our configuration selection. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's really where it comes in for CPQ. Um,
Yeah.
I
I
don't
think
I don't really know as many examples for the integration case like we're talking about, but yeah.
I think it's anywhere where, again, like, since you don't, if you're an internal stakeholder
Mhm.
on the customer team and you need information in a different system to do anything, right? Like, price books come up all the time. Like, I got to
Correct.
look at this PDF to see if you're on the list. And then if you are on the list, you get X percentage discount, but maybe this location is not on the list and they
Yep.
should be, right? That's the kind of stuff where pricing updates and just this, okay, it's the system of record, sure, but how is it getting to the other systems that people use,
Yep.
right? Um, Integrations can often provide a lot of value in those cases.
Great.
Um, so thank you for humoring me today, sir. This is
Yeah.
it's coming up more and more because, and we should expect it a lot more this year, because customer platform means, to me, it means the unified view of the customer, which means the money they give you,
Yes.
the revenue data, right?
Yep.
It's no longer a case where HubSpot cannot handle that, at least the container for it. And one of my favorite things is talking to finance teams. As long as you can speak their language, right, which is the challenge for the ecosystem right now.
Yes.
But if you can speak their language and connect communication with lower collections lists, because we proactively talk to customers about invoices and all that stuff, they're some of the quickest teams to get on board.
Agreed. Yeah. I think that, you know, it's what we've been talking about the whole time. If we can connect data in that you need about your customer, everything will improve dramatically because you've got it all in one place. So
Indeed. So think about all of the customer touch points, even on the accounting side. They're talking to customers too, and in general about the most important thing to your business. Um, so they can be some of your biggest champions when you start to make this stuff visible, especially for internal teams. They don't like answering those calls. We're like, yeah, this customer's good. They got the green light. They get credit. I mean, they like being the gatekeepers, don't get me wrong,
yeah,
but they wouldn't mind if they didn't have to answer that call
agree.
all the time.
Yeah.
So check out your process and your specifically your back office processes. Like, find those connections to the customer and see, like, maybe if we could make this data available to our teams or to our customers, we could find some opportunities and we could grow. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. I almost shamelessly plugged myself. So